I love spiritual practices like this. I've looked into Reiki, but I haven't had that yet. But
Mhm.
just slowly over time, I'm getting more and more familiar with, yeah, just so many different things like the healing power of crystals and so many other things. But I just know there are so many skeptics out there, and so many of us, because I was one of them, just, so uptight and incapable of even opening yourself up to the idea of spiritual practices and how they could heal you.
Mhm.
Um, for those people out there sitting on the fence right now, what would you say to them?
Yeah, so first of all, I have my crystals here with me, so that's funny that
Great.
you mentioned that.
Nice.
Yeah, I was definitely one of those people who at first, with certain topics, including crystals, at first I was like, are you sure about that? I don't know. That sounds a little out there.
Sure.
So I do think it is partially just a process. If you find the gateway that works for you, which for a lot of us is the practice of physical asana, of yoga, once you find that gateway, you tend to, over time, get a little more open to the other things. And to me as well, there's no risk in trying any of this. I mean, you're not going to get injured from doing Reiki or from holding a rock in your hand,
Right. Yeah.
So to me, it's almost a matter of why not try it? And it might be very profound for you. And if it's not, then you can put the rock back down. It's not,
Exactly.
it could be this major life shifting thing, or it could be just a whatever moment, but there's no really risk in doing it. And I've definitely encountered a lot of people in my time who have kind of talked down to me because of my beliefs in this kind of stuff, which is totally fine because I know that's a reflection of them just not being ready for it, and
Yeah.
I'm here when they are ready for it. So
Right.
it's
That's a
kind
great
of
attitude to have. Yeah.
right.
Yes.
It's just kind of holding that space for them of like, what I do, I have these crystals, and when you're ready, I'm here.
Right.
I think that's a really good approach, actually. When people are ready, don't try and
Yeah.
force them, because they're,
Yeah.
they're not that could have a detrimental effect. But I think as well, it's just doing new things. The other day with my crystals, I was holding them over some sage.
Mhm.
And my girlfriend came in the room and was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm just recharging my crystals, blah, blah, blah." And like, it was interesting though, because at first I could see her very skeptical, like, "What are you?" I'm very confused. But then she was quite intrigued. So I think the more
Mhm.
people that do it and talk about it, the more it becomes maybe an acceptable social practice that
Yeah.
people might want to talk about. So yeah, I love it.
Mhm.
It's great.
And with crystals in particular, too, the thing that I tell people when they're skeptical is that it's just a piece of the earth. And if we know the earth has this electrical pulse to it, and we know that things on the earth are living and breathing, then why couldn't there be energy in this rock that I have? You know what I mean?
That's
Exactly. Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. When you really think about it, it just makes total sense. It's just something that we were never taught, or at least not in
exactly.
the States. We're not taught that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously in Eastern country or Eastern cultures, they're taught that a little bit more, I'm sure. But yeah. And it goes back to what you talked about at the beginning. Of course, I keyed in on because I think about expectations a lot. And, I'll put a plug in for the expectation gaps here. But so anyways, but it does go back to societal expectations of what a spiritual practice is. And
Hmm.
so yeah, it does take a lot of courage, I think, to kind of shut out all that noise and really listen to yourself and know that it's the right path for you, regardless of what anybody else has to say about it.
Hmm. And to that point as well, I think there can also be a lot of expectations within the spiritual society as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I am very grateful to know the community of people I know who are yoga practitioners and Reiki practitioners and all that good stuff. But there's definitely an ever growing kind of stereotype of what a yogi is. And,
Yeah.
I mean, there's always been that kind of stereotype of a hippie and that
Yep.
kind of thing.
That's what I think of first still, honestly,
Right,
even though I know
right.
better, but that is what comes to mind. Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. So I think even within that space of a spiritual circle, you do still have to be aware, if you don't do all the spiritual things, it's okay. You're still on your own journey and you're going in your own time. And the practices that are going to resonate with you are going to happen for you. And the ones that don't aren't going to happen for you. And that's going to be different for every person.
Just a quick question about yoga as well, Lydia. So I really want to do yoga, but I'd have to say I think I'm the least flexible man on the planet, and I get nervous about looking silly or doing it wrong, which is why if I was going to start, I'd probably want to do it at home by myself. But I imagine that's true of a lot of people, because again, we're always concerned with other people's views of us. What would you say to anyone out there like me who's a little bit unsure, I suppose?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a very common story that I hear, especially the I'm not flexible enough story, which always makes me chuckle a little bit. Yeah, I totally understand the intimidation factor of walking into a yoga studio. And I think that kind of goes back a little bit into that stereotype of a yogi that's coming about, in that we're a little bit, high and mighty, and we're here doing our like crazy handstands and things like that. But I think one of the factors of that, if you are going to practice in a physical space, is to find a space that feels comfortable to you and find a teacher that feels comfortable to you. And that's not going to happen right away. So give yourself the space and grace to experiment and explore a little bit and find the person, the place that resonates with you. We are in a time right now where obviously a lot of yoga is digital and online, which is really awesome for those people who do feel a little bit self-conscious. You can practice at home and you can really get to slow down and get to know the basics first, which, if you pop into a random yoga class, there's no guarantee that the teacher is going to be able to give you the attention that you need. So if you do go to a physical class, see that it is labeled for beginners. That's a big thing. You want to set yourself up for success in that way. If you're practicing online, take it slow. Don't feel like you have to be rushing into these crazy postures that you see on Instagram. Really go at your own pace, be open-minded. And just like we were talking about with other spiritual practices, like what's the worst that could happen? Just try it out, see what you like, experiment with different teachers and different styles. And I mean, even just the styles of yoga, there's so many different avenues you could take just with the physical practice of yoga. So really see that as an opportunity to explore rather than, getting overwhelmed with all your options. And just enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the hard part, especially for people like Adam and I, who kind of like, we kind of like things in boxes. So Adam used to be a banker and I used to be an accountant. So we kind of like things in little boxes. So it can be intimidating sometimes to like try a lot of things, because we always feel like, oh, we have to find the right thing right away. So I think that's very encouraging for you to say that it is okay to try a class and not enjoy it, and try a different one, and maybe you don't enjoy that one either, but if you really are committed to it, just keep trying and you'll find one. And I'm also curious. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I think that goes back to kind of this instant gratification culture we have as well. You kind of want the first thing to be the best thing, and that's not always how it happens. And even along the way, I've definitely been to yoga classes that I didn't enjoy in kind of, a year after I'd been practicing or whatever it may be. So it's just this always fluctuating thing that, to me, that's really fun, that you're always just kind of experimenting and seeing, discovering people who inspire you, discovering what doesn't work for you. All of that, again, comes back to that self-exploration.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
What I really like there, though, is just you talking about expectations. Because I think that's a really big thing. I was listening to Brené Brown's podcast the other day on the FFT, or effing first time. And just when you basically look at doing something for the first time, and this is maybe something I've got to remember as well, is it's going to suck. You're going to suck at it. So, when I try and do yoga for the first time, I'm sure I'm going to really struggle and things like that. But I guess it's setting that expectation that you're not going to be the super master who's going to instantly get it right and do everything in the right way, you're probably going to struggle, but that's half of the course, really. You've just got to expect that it's going to be hard in the beginning, and along the way you'll find that. So I think that's a really important lesson. And, you know, I spoke about FFTs the other day, and I've already forgotten that lesson. So, you know, how easy is that?
Yeah, you definitely need those constant reminders for sure. And people who have been practicing yoga for a long time, I challenge you to find that beginner's mind again and really, you know, find that kind of spark and nervousness and excitement of being a beginner and trying something new, and recognizing that some poses aren't going to work for you and some will, and, you know, just letting whatever will be.
Yeah.